My father wants me gone, Lisa warned me. Then Cherry got into that fancy school with no trouble at all. Someone powerful helped, but I don't know who. Lunch with Justin was weird. I wanted to see his son Pete, but he wasn't there. When I asked about Pete's mother, Justin got angry and told me to stop asking. So, who helped Cherry, and why keep it secret? What is Justin hiding about Pete's mother? Justin sat across from me, completely focused on his meal, deliberately ignoring me. I leaned forward slightly. Do you still talk to Pete's mother? He didn't even flinch. His fork moved smoothly from plate to mouth, as if I hadn't spoken at all. I watched him carefully before pressing further. How did you two meet? Still, nothing. Come on, Justin. My voice remained light. She must have been someone special. Justin suddenly slammed his fork down. Stop with these questions, please. Silence. Then his voice came again, firmer this time. I don't want to talk about that horrible woman. I didn't respond. Then his gaze lifted to mine, cool and calculating. What about your daughter's father? A slow smile curled my lips. Cherry's father? Unfortunately, there's something wrong with his brain. Justin frowned. He's kind of an idiot, I said casually. Goes on and on about fighting and killing people every day. And he thinks that every woman in the world owes him something. Gets mad at people for no reason. Since he called Pete's mom a horrible woman, it's only fair I curse him a little too, right? An eye for an eye. I smirked internally, but Justin's frown deepened. Something wrong with his brain? He repeated. Can't you treat him? I waved a hand dismissively. He's very ill. I can't cure him. Justin exhaled, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. There was something about my answer that unsettled him. His next words came out more hesitantly. Why did you have a child with him? I suppressed a laugh. Who knows, I said, tilting my head as if the thought hadn't occurred to me before. Maybe God thought he shouldn't be left without an heir. Justin scoffed, his voice laced with sarcasm. So you were pretty much just doing charity then? Leaning forward, he smirked. After all, apart from you, he probably won't be able to find any other woman for the rest of his life. I rolled my eyes, pushing my plate aside. I'm full, Mr. Hunt. I'm not done yet. I scoffed, pushing back my chair. Take your time to eat. I'll leave first. Justin, leisurely cutting into his next bite, didn't even glance up. Is this how the Andersons treat people they've agreed to have lunch with? With a sigh, I sat back down, crossing my arms as I watched him. My gaze flickered with something unreadable. 2 hours later, Justin finally placed his utensils down, dabbing the corners of his mouth with a napkin. I straightened immediately. Finally, I waved at the waiter. Check, please. The waiter smiled politely. Mr. Hunt has already taken care of the bill. I blinked, turning toward Justin. It's my treat this time, he said smoothly. You can treat me next time. I narrowed my eyes suspiciously. Next time? I followed him out of the private room, my mind already planning a million ways to ensure there would be no next time. Suddenly my phone rang. Pulling out my phone, I quickly answered. Miss Smith, you need to come down to the school immediately. Something happened to Sheril. My entire body tensed. What happened? Please just come as soon as possible. I turned to Justin. I have to go. He frowned. What's wrong? I didn't wait to answer. When I reached the school, I strode through the entrance until I spotted Miss Lynn, Cherry's teacher, rushing toward me. Miss Smith? I cut her off sharply. Are all the kids okay? She hesitated, momentarily caught off guard. Yes, they are. And the teachers? She was confused. Yes, they're fine. My eyes narrowed. So, who did Cherry beat up? The security guard? Miss Lynn's mouth opened. What? No, Miss Smith, Cherry fainted. I stopped mid-step. Fainted? I repeated. Cherry's perfectly healthy. She must be faking it. Miss Lynn looked exasperated. No, she really fainted. For the first time, I was concerned about Cherry. Where is she? In the dance studio, Miss Lynn said. Without another word, I followed her. I walked in to find a group of teachers hovering around Cherry, who was lying on a mat. A girl in a dance costume, Sinead Lowe, was crying dramatically beside her. The school doctor stood up as soon as I entered. Don't worry, Miss Smith, I've checked her, she's fine. She likely fainted due to distress. I knelt beside Cherry, taking her wrist. Her pulse was strong. Too strong for someone who had actually fainted. Oh, this little actress. Cherry remained motionless, but I lightly tickled her palm. She twitched. Then, she tickled me back. "Mommy," she whispered, "don't tell on me." I coughed, masking my amusement. "What happened?" Miss Lynn hesitated before glancing towards Sinead, whose sobs only grew louder. "The school is hosting its 50th anniversary event," she explained. "We're selecting children for the final dance, and Cherry got into a disagreement with Sinead Lowe." I didn't even have time to process that before an arrogant voice cut through. "Whitney Lowe," Sinead's mother stepped forward. Dressed in designer clothes, she crossed her arms and looked down at me with a smirk. "Your daughter is so short-tempered and sensitive," she started. "Just one little argument and she faints." I didn't blink. "And yours cries for hours because someone else danced better?" A few teachers suppressed their giggles. Whitney's smirk faded, but she recovered quickly. "Talent without discipline is nothing," she scoffed. I turned my gaze to Cherry, who was now fully alert, sitting up with an innocent expression. "Guess we'll see about that," I murmured. "Your daughter has a poor physique," Whitney declared. "Too stiff and awkward. She should be replaced." From beside her, Sinead clapped gleefully. "Yes, replace her. Don't let her go on stage." Miss Lynn, visibly tensed, spoke up. "But I think Cherry danced pretty well just now." "Which part of that was good?" Whitney scoffed, cutting her off. "Who's the professional here, you or me?" Her movements were stiff, her timing was off, and she didn't follow the rhythm. "She's not suited for dancing." I studied Whitney carefully. "Miss Lynn," I said, "would Cherry be allowed to participate if someone more qualified than Mrs. Lowe vouched for her talent?" Whitney's smirk twitched. Her arms tightened across her chest. "Someone more professional than me?" she repeated, scoffing. "You think you can find that in this state?" Miss Lynn hesitated. "Miss Smith, Mrs. Lowe competed in the Blackpool Dance Festival, an international ballroom competition. She runs an academy for gifted students and has even taught the Hunts and the Smiths' children." "Good for her," I said flatly. "Until you prove otherwise," Whitney said. "Sheril is banned from my classes." With that, she turned to leave. I smoothly stepped in front of her, blocking her path. She froze, her irritation evident. "What are you doing?" she snapped. "Mrs. Lowe, shouldn't you apologize for bullying my daughter?" "Absolutely not." I took a step closer. "You will apologize," I said, "or you won't like the consequences." For a moment, Whitney shivered. "I'm sorry," she muttered. I yawned, stretching slightly before turning to Cherry. "Let's go." As the door swung shut behind us, I could almost hear Whitney screaming. "Then I'm calling the police!" Whitney's furious voice rang out behind us. "She threatened me. I'll have her arrested." The principal strolled in the dance studio and walked toward Whitney Lowe. His voice was calm but authoritative. "Mrs. Lowe, we don't know who Miss Smith is," he began. "But we've been instructed by certain important people to treat her with the utmost respect. We can't afford any trouble." For a brief moment, Whitney's face twisted with disbelief. "Important people? What does that mean?" On our way back home, Cherry sat in the front passenger seat. "Mommy, are you really asking Aunt Tanya to come back to America for my sake?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow. "No, why would you think that?" Cherry folded her arms. "But Aunt Tanya loves dancing, and she's better than Mrs. Lowe." A quiet chuckle slipped from my lips. "Smart girl. She's coming next week to judge a festival, that's all." Cherry's face lit up instantly. "Oh, that's so exciting." As we stepped out of the car and headed inside Anderson Villa, Sheril rushed toward us. "Nora," she called out. "I've successfully developed the carefree pill based on your formula. We can start mass production whenever we want." Before I could react, another voice cut in. Melissa stepped forward. "That's great, Sheril. But don't forget the little things." Cheril's grin widened, as if she had been waiting for the perfect moment. "I have dance class later, Nora." She paused dramatically. "Come with me. Let's have the choreographer plan a routine for us. We can perform together at the party." I barely opened my mouth before she grabbed my arm, pulling me forward. "No, it's..." I started, but Sheril had already decided for me. "Come on, let's go," she insisted. Behind us, Melissa let out a light laugh. "Mom, look after Cherry," Sheril called over her shoulder. Later that night, Cherry tiptoed inside the study. With a few swift taps, she launched her gaming live stream. "Hello, Sponsor Grandpa," she chirped. A notification popped up in the chat. "Sponsor Grandpa." Cherry grinned. "I'm playing as the same hero today. Without Chesty making trouble, I'm gonna hit the top rankings." She barely had time to focus when her screen flooded with notifications. A massive donation alert flashed across the chat. "Sponsor Grandpa." "Thank you, Grandpa," she beamed. The chat was still scrolling wildly, filled with doubt, mockery, and disbelief. Then, in a calm voice, Cherry spoke. "Who says I won't turn on the camera?" Cherry is about to expose herself to the world, the consequences unknown. My confrontation with Whitney Lowe, though satisfying, left a lingering unease. Who were these important people protecting me? And what did they want in return? And Justin, with his veiled threats and unsettling questions, what was he truly after? As Cherry prepared to reveal her identity to her online audience, would this innocent act expose her to unforeseen dangers? What secrets would unravel in the coming days? And would I be able to protect Cherry from the storm that was brewing on the horizon?